Hey guys, welcome to today's video. We're going to be going over my NFL Mock Draft 2.0 pre-free agency mock draft, where we're going to be highlighting the upcoming NFL draft, and we're going to be going over all the big prospects in this first round mock draft. Before we get started, please drop a quick like and a sub on today's video. That would really help my channel grow. I'd really appreciate that. With that said, let's dive right into the video, and I hope you enjoy. So this is going to be my second mock draft of the mock draft season, and let's just dive right in here. Number one overall with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So at number one, not too much, speculation here. There has been a little bit of talk where, some NFL analysts have been saying maybe Trevor Lawrence doesn't go number one, maybe a guy like Zach Wilson goes number one, but I think Trevor Lawrence has to go number one for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He is a home run, safe quarterback pick, and I talked about it in my last mock draft, but he's just an all-around great athlete, and he can really do everything on the football field. He's got good mobility, good arm strength, he's a great leader. That's exactly what Jacksonville needs to turn around their franchise. So we're going to go give them Trevor Lawrence number one overall. At number two now, it's going to be the New York Jets. And for the New York Jets, right, the quarterback situation is definitely a need. I don't think they stick with Sam Darnold this offseason. I just don't think that he's really good. I just don't think there's much there for him or for the New York Jets. And Joe Douglas, the Jets GM, has been talking about, taking calls for Sam Darnold. So that means that they're definitely interested in moving him. So therefore, they're going to go after a quarterback, I think, at pick number two. And although I did give them Zach Wilson in the last mock draft, I'm going to give them Justin Fields in this mock draft. And the reason for that is because Zach Wilson, right, he's good. But last year, where he really succeeded, he threw a lot of touchdowns, not many interceptions. He did it against worse competition than the year before, where he did struggle at times. So Justin Fields, he was fantastic throughout his entire collegiate career, and the reason for that was because of his dual mobility, right? His ability to use his arm as well as his legs to really extend plays. And if Justin Fields' arm doesn't work out for the Jets, his legs will definitely do the trick, and I think that he's a safe pick at pick number two, and he's definitely his top 12 quarterback upside at the next level. So I think Justin Fields at pick number two makes a lot of sense. Now, though, let's move on to pick number three, where it's going to be the Miami Dolphins, and I'm not going to spend too much time here with this one. It's going to be number 12th prospect on this little mock draft simulator, Devonta Smith, wide receiver out of Alabama. He was fantastic last season, won the Heisman, and he obviously has that chemistry with Tua Tagovailoa. They were teammates together at Alabama, and I mean, they were fantastic together. Devonta Smith, Tua, that's a good, a good little chemistry there. But overall, the Dolphins need receivers, they need playmakers, and Devonta Smith brings that to this Dolphins team. Next up, let's talk about the Atlanta Falcons at pick number four. And for them, they need to go after a corner. They were the worst coverage team in the NFL all of last season. So I think them going out and getting a corner who can be an impact playmaker on the outside really makes a lot of sense for them. And for me, I like Patrick Surtain as the number one corner in this draft. I did talk about it in my last mock draft video, but nonetheless, I think his mix of, his physicality, his size, his strength is really, projects really well to the next level. The only problem with him is his deep end speed. He lacks that true top tier speed, but he's still really fast, really physical, really athletic, and he's a number one corner for any team in the NFL, I think, and he's going to be great for this Atlanta Falcons team if they decide to pick him at number four, which I think would be a really smart move for them. At pick four, really helps their defense and their coverage. Now let's move on to pick number five, where it's going to be an absolute no-brainer. And for me, the Cincinnati Bengals, they got their quarterback of the future last year in Joe Burrow. They need some offensive line up front to protect him, and I don't think there's a better prospect at the offensive tackle position in this year's draft than Penei Sewell. You can play him at left tackle, you play him at guard, you play him at right tackle. It depends what they're going to want to do with Jonah Williams. But I think Sewell at left tackle, left guard makes a lot of sense. He's a lot better as a run blocker than a pass protector, but he's got all the physical tools that really will help project to the next level, that will help protect Joe Burrow and help that run game up there in Cincinnati. Overall, I think Penei Sewell at number five for the Cincinnati Bengals would be an absolute dream come true. I think he's one of the best prospects in this draft, and just because of needs of teams in front of the Cincinnati Bengals, I think that Sewell dropping to five could realistically happen, and I think that would be an absolute steal. So Penei Sewell at pick number five for the Cincinnati Bengals is a good move. Now, though, let's go to pick number six, where we're going to have the Philadelphia Eagles. And in the last mock draft, I gave them Caleb Farley out of Virginia Tech, the corner, and that's definitely a big need for them. But in this mock draft, I want to give them a wide receiver because at the end of the day, they don't really have enough weapons for a guy like Jalen Hurts to really utilize in that passing game. And I think adding some other weapons that can really stretch the field is a good move for them. And the guy I want to give them is Jalen Waddle. So obviously, I personally think Ja'Marr Chase is probably the second best wide receiver in this draft class, other than Devonta Smith. Behind Devonta Smith. But Jalen Waddle is a guy who can really expand the field. And I think him with Jalen Hurts, Jalen Reagor from last year's draft, and then you add Jalen Waddle too, I think there could be a lot to work with there. And you get a lot of Jalen's in there. You get Jalen Reagor, Jalen Hurts, Jalen Waddle. It's the Jalen fest of the Philadelphia Eagles. I think that could be a really interesting move for the Philadelphia Eagles. Obviously, they need a wide receiver badly, a guy who can really open up the field, spread the defense out. I think Jalen Waddle could be that guy. He brings a lot of speed to the table, and I think that could be very interesting for the Philadelphia Eagles in 2021. Next up is the Detroit Lions, and for the Detroit Lions, I think they need to go out and get a wide receiver. Marvin Jones Jr. as well as Kenny Golladay are free agents this upcoming offseason. And although they might, decide to franchise tag one of them, or maybe decide to let them walk, or maybe re-sign them. Obviously, this video has been recorded before any of that's happened. They still need another wide receiver. They need more guys to surround Jared Goff with some real options, and I think Ja'Marr Chase is a perfect guy to do that. He's got a great mix of route running. He's got a great mix of speed, athleticism, size, and he's got great hands, and he's an all-around terrific receiver that I think would be a plug-and-play starter for that Lions offense. And now let's go to pick 8, where I don't think this could work out any better for the Carolina Panthers. They've made it obvious they don't want Teddy Bridgewater anymore. They're taking trade calls for him. They're trying to move him. They're trying to figure out a way to move him, and they need another quarterback that can really inject some life into this offense. And a guy that could do that is Zach Wilson. I mean, he was absolutely fantastic, and he reminds me of a mini Mahomes in a way. I mean, he's got great arm talent, great elusiveness outside the pocket. He's got the mobility, and he's got the arm talent that you really like to see from these young quarterbacks. Another guy he kind of reminds me of coming out of college is a guy like Drew Lock. So that's a little bit of a scary thing, somewhere between Drew Lock and Patrick Mahomes. But I think Zach Wilson, with what I saw from him last year, and his ability to throw the deep ball and throw the ball downfield with accuracy, precision, and power, those are all really interesting things that I think make him a very exciting prospect at the next level. And I think that for the Carolina Panthers at 8, it would be a dream come true for Zach Wilson to fall to them. Now, though, let's move to the Denver Broncos at pick number 9. And for them, they need help on the defensive side of the football. And I think this would be a really good opportunity for them to go out and get Micah Parsons, who, in my opinion, is probably one of the better defensive players in this draft, if not the best defensive player in this draft at the linebacker position. I think that the Broncos definitely have needs at corner. They definitely have needs at linebacker. They also have needs at the edge rusher position, but nonetheless, I think Micah Parsons and the ability for him to get to the football, and the skill sets and attributes he brings to the table would be very scary in that Broncos defense. And I think that he could be a staple of that Broncos defense for the next 5 to 10 years, just with the talent he has at the linebacker position. So I think Micah Parsons falling to 9 as one of the most talented defensive players in this draft would be an absolute steal for the Broncos. Now, though, let's go to pick number 10, and it's going to be the Dallas Cowboys here. And for me, the Dallas Cowboys need help in the secondary. It's that simple. They got walked all over last season by opposing offenses. I mean, they were constantly in shootouts, especially early in the year when they had Dak Prescott healthy. He was throwing the football so well for them, but they need help on the defense side of the football, and there's no better guy than Caleb Farley. I think he's up there with Patrick Surtain as one of the better corners in this draft. I think him and Surtain are really neck and neck for that number 1 corner spot, but nonetheless, Farley's a little bit faster. He is a little bit more raw too, but nonetheless, he has had injuries that might push him further down the board, but nonetheless, he's still really athletic, really sticky in man coverage, especially one-on-one coverage on the outside, and he's a lockdown defender, and that's exactly what the Cowboys need at the cornerback position. You pair him up with Trayvon Diggs from last year's draft, and then you're starting to get a young secondary really that can be an influential part of that Cowboys defense in the next few seasons. And next up is going to be the New York Giants, and for the New York Giants, this one might surprise you a little bit. Obviously, the Giants do have Evan Engram at tight end. He's not great. Let's be real for a second, he's not great, but I think them going out and getting Kyle Pitts, who's not just a tight end, but a true nightmare matchup, matchup nightmare rather. This guy can play as a wide receiver, he can play as a tight end, he can block, he can beat you in one-on-one situations, he can jump over you. He is the total package at the tight end position. And we've seen tight ends go in the first round in the past few years, guys like TJ Hawkinson, Noah Fant. Those guys aren't busts, but I don't think they're true, first round quality players. But a guy like Kyle Pitts is, just because of his athletic ability, his size, his speed. He mixes all those together really well and really nicely. And I think him in that Giants offense with Evan Engram, and then you've got some guys on the outside that can be difference makers, guys like Sterling Shepard and even Darius Slayton. And you're starting to get some weapons on that Giants offense that is an offense that really needs help on the offensive side of the football. I mean, the Giants defense was okay last year, but it's really the offense that they need to focus on. And Kyle Pitts is the best offensive player left on the board, so why not go take him if you're the New York Giants? Now, though, let's go to the San Francisco 49ers, and this might be a little bit of a move that might surprise you, but I like this one a lot. So the San Francisco 49ers, the whole Jimmy Garoppolo situation is a little bit interesting, but nonetheless, I think that they can move on from Jimmy Garoppolo this offseason. Maybe they don't move on from him, but nonetheless, getting a guy like Trey Lance makes a lot of sense for me. I mean, this guy's got a lot of upside. He's got a lot of potential. He's got a great arm, great legs, great mobility. He's a perfect package at the quarterback position, and he reminds me a little bit of Josh Allen coming out of college, a little bit raw, but nonetheless, he's so big, physical, mobile, athletic, where he can really be a fiend at the next level. And I think Trey Lance in that 49er system, with the weapons they have there and the offensive line they have there and the defense that they have there, in 2 years, that team could be scary again. Especially, I mean, I think they could be Super Bowl contenders in 2 years if Trey Lance, really projects to the next level. I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is a guy that could probably get them there again. He's solid. I mean, he's a solid quarterback in the NFL. He's definitely a top 20 guy, but he doesn't have that elite potential that a guy like Trey Lance could have at the next level. So I think Trey Lance going to the 49ers is a really interesting scenario that I think could happen in the NFL draft. Now, though, let's move on to pick number 13, where it's going to be the Los Angeles Chargers. And I don't think this could work out any better for them at pick number 13, because at the end of the day, they need offensive line help for Justin Herbert. That was their main issue last year. And Rashawn Slater is arguably the best offensive lineman in this draft behind Penei Sewell. And I've seen analysts that have said that he's even better than Penei Sewell. And the reason for him being really good is because he's ready to play right now. He can play at left tackle. He can play inside at the offensive line, at the interior offensive line position, at offensive guard. He can play anywhere on that offensive line. I don't think he can play center, but he can play the tackle position. He can play the guard position because he's got good technique, good size, good ability. And overall, that's exactly what the Chargers need. They need a plug-and-play left tackle to help Justin Herbert stay upright. And Rashawn Slater is exactly that. So I think he'd be a fantastic fit for them in LA. Now, though, let's go to pick number 14, where it's going to be the Minnesota Vikings. And I don't want to spend too much time here. They need help for Kirk Cousins and Dalvin Cook up front. They need some offensive line help, and I think a guy that could really help them out is Elijah Vera Tucker. And the reason for that is he's a guy that can play multiple positions. He can play left tackle, he can play the tackle position, he can also play guard. And I think that, for those reasons, he'd be really helpful for that Minnesota Vikings offensive line that's in desperate need of a guy that can really just step in and be a difference maker in the run game and pass protection. That's exactly what Elijah Vera Tucker is. And I think that although there are better offensive tackles still available right now on the board, I still think that a guy like Elijah Vera Tucker makes a lot of sense, just for the reason that he can play the tackle position, he can play the guard position. I think that him at tackle wouldn't make too much sense at the NFL level, but at guard, I think he could be really solid, and I think that's exactly what the Vikings need for that run game and for the pass protection part of that too. Now, though, let's move to the New England Patriots at pick number 15, and for them, they need a quarterback, okay? It's that simple. They need a quarterback, and I think a guy that could really be an influential quarterback for them in this year's draft is Mac Jones. And the reason I'm saying Mac Jones is I think his accuracy is off the charts, and I think his arm talent's really good, and I think his pocket presence and his poise in the pocket is something that really just jumps off the tape for me when it comes to Mac Jones. So for those reasons, I think that he can be an absolute game changer at the next level with his accuracy, his pocket presence, his pocket poise, his ability to find his deeper targets, and he's just really accurate throwing the football. And I think for those reasons, he kind of reminds me a little bit of Tom Brady. He's not super mobile, and at the end of the day, he's got good leadership. He won a national championship with Alabama. He's a good leader. He's exactly what that New England Patriots team needs at the quarterback position. They need a guy who can be a leader. They need a guy who can be accurate throwing the football, and that's exactly what Mac Jones is. So I think him going to the Patriots at pick 15 makes a lot of sense. Now, though, let's go to pick number 16, where it's going to be the Arizona Cardinals. And with the Arizona Cardinals, for me, their biggest need is the cornerback position. Patrick Peterson might walk this year in free agency. I don't think they have enough money to sign him after signing J.J. Watt. So they need a corner to go out and help that secondary. And for me, I love J.C. Horn out of South Carolina. He's strong, he's physical, he's good in one-on-one. He's all around just a good corner. And I think he's got true top corner upside at the next level. Although I don't have him at the same level as a guy like Caleb Farley or Patrick Surtain, he's still clearly for me the number 3 corner in this draft. And I think for the Cardinals, it just makes a lot of sense to go out and get an impact corner that can be good in one-on-one coverage. It's exactly what the Cardinals need, and I think J.C. Horn would just be a perfect fit for them in Arizona. Now, though, let's go to pick number 17, where it's going to be the Las Vegas Raiders. And the biggest need for the Las Vegas Raiders this offseason is getting some pass rush, getting some guys that can get to the quarterback. And for me, the best guy in the draft to do that is none other than Gregory Rousseau. Who's right here. He was fantastic last year for the University of Miami. Not this year because he didn't play this year. Wasn't part of that team, I think, due to opting out for COVID reasons. But nonetheless, he is strong, he's physical, he is raw, but he uses his length really well to, bend and get to quarterbacks. And I think that's exactly what the Las Vegas Raiders really need. Him and Max Crosby could be really scary in Las Vegas. And I think him I think Gregory Rousseau would be an absolute impact player for this Las Vegas Raiders defense, where they really need a guy who can get to the quarterback. Gregory Rousseau did that. I think he had 15.5 sacks last season he played in at the University of Miami. The only problem with him, he's a little raw, didn't have the most time, to really refine his talents. But nonetheless, I think him in Las Vegas would be scary for that Raiders defense. Now, though, let's go to pick number 18, where it's going to be the Miami Dolphins on the board once again, their second first-round pick in this year's draft. And for me, it's gonna be a linebacker here. Obviously, they got rid of Kyle Van Noy. They cut him, and that leaves a big gaping hole at the linebacker position where they need a guy who can have sideline-to-sideline speed, who's good at tackling, he can be solid in pass coverage, who can also get to the quarterback a little bit. And the guy that reminds me a little bit of that is Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, out of Notre Dame. This guy is physical, he's fast, he's lightning quick, he's good in pass coverage, he's good in run defending. He's got everything. He's an all-around great linebacker, and him and Jerome Baker could be really good for that Miami Dolphins defense. I think that, the linebacker position is a big point of emphasis for this Dolphins defense coming into next season, and I think a guy like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah could be a big impact player for this Dolphins defense. Now let's move on to pick number 19, where it's going to be the Washington football team. And this team does not need any help on the defense side of the football, so we're not even going to look on the defense side of the football. They do need help at quarterback. There's not really a quarterback here where I think that they could go out and get that would make sense for them at pick number 19. Wide receiver is another big need for them, but I think that's something that they'll fill in free agency, so that leaves offensive line. And I think the best offensive lineman available right now is Christian Darrisaw. And although the offensive line has been one of the better parts of that Washington football team over the past few seasons, I don't love Morgan Moses over there at tackle, and I think Christian Darrisaw just makes a lot of sense to come in and be a plug-and-play left tackle for them at the left tackle position, be a solid guy. And I think Christian Darrisaw, after a guy like Rashawn Slater and after a guy like Penei Sewell, is probably the best tackle available in the draft. So for those reasons, I think he is a no-brainer for this Washington football team at pick number 19. Next up, we're going to have the Chicago Bears at pick number 20. And, wide receiver position is a big need of them. Quarterback is a big need for them, but I don't think either of those make sense here at pick number 20. So we're going to give them an offensive tackle. That's a huge need for them. I'd argue it's bigger than the need that the Washington football team have. And I wouldn't be surprised if Chicago ended up trading in front of Washington because they have a lot of the same sorts of needs. It depends what they end up doing in free agency, but nonetheless, I think Chicago sitting at 20, that might change. But I think them going out and getting Samuel Cosmi makes sense to me. He was really solid at Texas, one of the better tackles in the country. And he's definitely a first round pick tackle. So I think him in Chicago makes sense. They need help on the offensive side of the football, especially in the offensive line. And you go out and get a first round tackle. That's a good step in helping out your offense. Now, though, let's go to the Indianapolis Colts at pick number 21. And this is an interesting situation for the Indianapolis Colts. Obviously, they went out and got Carson Wentz. They do need some help on the offensive line with the retirement of Anthony Costanzo. Definitely wide receiver is a big need for them, and I think wide receiver is actually where they'll end up going, especially with T.Y. Hilton leaving, or probably leaving. We don't know yet, obviously free agency. He's going to be a free agent. So I think them going to get a wide receiver, I think Rashad Bateman makes a lot of sense to me. He's got the good, mix of size, speed, and athleticism that you want from number one wide receiver, and, him and Michael Pittman Jr. would be really interesting as number one, number two receivers. They're in Indianapolis. I'm not counting out that they're going to go out and probably sign someone in free agency, but I think getting a guy like Rashad Bateman, who's got really good physical skill sets, and really good route running and good speed, good size, good athleticism, is just he's a good impact player for this Colts team. I think he'd be a good part of that offense with Carson Wentz and Michael Pittman Jr. and then a strong run game. I think Bateman is a smart move here in the draft. Now, though, let's go to pick number 22, where it's going to be the Tennessee Titans, and they're one of the most complete teams in the NFL. They've got good offense, and although their defense is a little bit of a question mark, I think that this team is a serious contender for the Super Bowl next year. I mean, this team, if they can add some pieces on the defense side of the football, they're a legit team to look out for, and one of the big things that I think they need to go after is a true edge defender. And it's between Kwity Paye and Jalen Phillips for me, but I like Jalen Phillips a little bit more. He was very good with the University of Miami last year, and Kwity Paye doesn't have as much production as him. I would argue that Kwity Paye probably has better, physical attributes and physical skill sets, but at the college level, Jalen Phillips simply just was better. He simply produced more, was a little bit better at getting to the quarterback, and for those reasons, I think the Tennessee Titans would just go after a guy that has already shown that he can produce at the collegiate level and has good, he's got good size, good physical traits that will allow him to be successful at the NFL level too. So that's going to be two edge defenders from the University of Miami going in the first round of the draft in my mock draft. Now, though, let's go to the New York Jets at pick number 23, which in my mind is a little bit of a luxury pick here, right? That might not really make sense, but obviously they went pick number 2. They went with their franchise quarterback in a guy like Justin Fields. And now you've got an opportunity to continue surrounding him with talent. And for me, I think that starts on the offensive side of the football. The defense for them is not a massive issue. Yeah, they're not great. They're not great on defense, but they were pretty much, I think they were about an average defense last year. So they got some guys on defense, but this offense was terrible. It was terrible. So you now get Justin Fields at your quarterback. You've got some weapons at the wide receiver position. And I think they'll go out and get a guy in free agency too. Obviously, they've got Denzel Mims. They've got Jamison Crowder. They've got some other weapons, but they're not great at wide receiver position. I don't think there's a true number one wide receiver on the board right now for them to go out and get. So I don't think a wide receiver is a good move here, but I think them getting a running back, or true number one running back, is a good idea. And that's between Najee Harris and Travis Etienne. For me, I think Harris is the better running back. He's a complete back. He can catch the ball in the backfield. He's strong, physical. Doesn't have that breakaway speed that we do see from Travis Etienne, but overall, I think Harris is just a better overall back. Out of Alabama, they have a good tradition of churning out really solid running backs, and I think Najee Harris is another one of those guys. So I think Najee Harris at pick number 23 makes sense. Now, though, let's go to pick number 24. It's going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. And for the Pittsburgh Steelers, they need help on offense, right? The defense has been good over the past few seasons, but they need to surround Ben Roethlisberger with some guys up front who can help him out. And that all starts at the offensive line. I think that they need to go out and really protect Ben Roethlisberger. They had trouble on the offensive line all of last year. And I think a guy like Taveen Jenkins could be a really good option for them. He's really solid. He's a little bit more of a project guy, especially because I don't think he's super ready right now. But nonetheless, I just think that, they really need help on the offensive line, either at the tackle position, I think, the guard position too. And Jenkins is a guy who could probably play the tackle and the guard position. They just need guys on the offensive line who can help protect Ben Roethlisberger. That was something that he was not there last year. I mean, he was not protected last year. There were a lot of the struggles that Pittsburgh was because of their inability to really push the line of scrimmage for the run game, and the inability for that offensive line to protect Ben Roethlisberger. So I think Jenkins at pick number 24 makes sense for them. Now, though, let's go to pick number 25, where for me it's going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars, obviously. And at pick 25, they've already gotten their franchise quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. Now they need to protect Trevor Lawrence. I think the offensive tackle position is a massive need for them, and I think the best guy to do that would have to be Liam Eichenberg out of Notre Dame. I think he's super solid. Overall, he's ready to go right now. I think Eichenberg could be a real difference maker for them at the offensive line position. Next up, we're going to go to the Cleveland Browns, who at pick number 26 are very happy, right? Obviously, they made the playoffs last year. They won a playoff game. They're happy. Almost beat the Chiefs, too. So overall, they had a really solid season, and they need some help on defense, I think, to take them over the edge. And for me, that starts at the linebacker position. I think overall, that's a real need for them. I think that's, if anywhere on the on the defense side of the football is a need, it's definitely the linebacker position. And I think getting a linebacker that can really be a difference maker at getting to the quarterback is a real makes a lot of sense. And for me, a guy like Zaven Collins is exactly that. Linebacker out of Tulsa, he's big, physical, he's massive. I mean, the guy is massive. He's an athlete, and I think he could be a real difference maker for that Browns defense. A guy who can get to the quarterback, a guy who can be a difference maker as a pass rusher, as a guy who can get to the run, stop the run well. He's physical, athletic, and I just think that him in that Browns defense just would make a lot of sense. Next up, we're going to have the Baltimore Ravens at pick 27, and for me, they need a wide receiver. Okay, they need a wide receiver. It's that simple. And for me, it's in between either a guy like Terrence Marshall Jr. or a guy like Kadarius Toney. And for me, I'm going to go with Terrence Marshall Jr. for them as another guy to, help spread out that offense and give some more weapons for Lamar Jackson, because Kadarius Toney reminds me a little bit of Hollywood Brown in the sense that they're both smaller speed guys, where Terrence Marshall Jr. was in without a better way to say it, the other guy for LSU in that great offense with Jamar Chase and obviously Justin Jefferson back with Joe Burrow. But Terrence Marshall Jr. last year without Jamar Chase was fantastic. He put up 10-plus touchdowns. Fantastic. I think he averaged over 100 yards a game, and he really showed that he can be a true number one or even number two option in an offense, and that's exactly what he was for LSU last year. He was the number one guy for them, and I think he could be a really solid option at wide receiver for that Baltimore Ravens team, giving them some balance, giving them true running game, as well as a guy who can go out and catch a lot of footballs for them. And I think Terrence Marshall Jr. just makes a lot of sense for that Ravens team. Now, though, let's move on to pick number 28, where it's going to be the New Orleans Saints. And for me, they need to add another wide receiver. Okay, they need to add another wide receiver for the reason that they simply do. Right? It's really that simple. I think that their need for a wide receiver extends of giving whoever plays quarterback for them next year some more options. And I think the guy that could really impact player for them is Kadarius Toney. He's able to stretch the field. He's got great speed, and him and Michael Thomas could be very scary as a 1-2 combo. Also with Emmanuel Sanders there, who might end up getting traded. He's been on the trade block, I think, for this New Orleans Saints. So that's something to watch out for. But nonetheless, I think the need for a wide receiver is something that's really important in New Orleans to really help that offense. And I think a guy like Kadarius Toney just makes a lot of sense. And that leaves the Green Bay Packers at number 29. I was originally going to give them Kadarius Toney. I think I gave them Kadarius Toney in the last mock draft. I like him going there. I think he could be a real asset for that team. But nonetheless, I think the Green Bay Packers are in need of a true guy on the defensive line that could be a playmaking presence. And I think Christian Barmore is exactly that. He is fantastic. I mean, the guy is as big as they come. He's a true playmaking presence on that defensive line. He can stop the run. He's just a big physical body that I think could really help that Packers defensive front. And although the offensive line position, especially at offensive tackle, I think is something that the Packers could definitely look into. I overall think the defensive side of the football is probably a little bit more of a need for them than the offensive side of the football. For those reasons, I like Christian Barmore. I think he's simply a really good, solid football player that could really fit into that Green Bay Packers defense, and I think he could be a real impact player for them in 2021. Now, though, let's move to the Buffalo Bills at pick number 30, and for me, it's got to be a running back for them. That's, in my opinion, their biggest need, and I think Travis Etienne makes a lot of sense for them. And the reason for that is that Travis Etienne is a guy who's got he's a great runner. It's really that simple. He's got great speed. He's got great pass catching abilities. He's an overall fantastic running back. And I think for those reasons, that's exactly why the Bills would want him. The Bills haven't had a true running back for the past few seasons. Devin Singletary isn't the answer. Zach Moss isn't the answer. So go out and get a true running back like Travis Etienne that has great speed, great pass catching abilities. He's an overall fantastic running back that could really be, an impact player for that offense, add another dynamic to that offense. Him, Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, three-headed monster running, passing, and throwing the football. So overall, I like Travis Etienne to the Buffalo Bills at pick number 30. Now, though, let's go to the Kansas City Chiefs. And for them, they need some help on the offensive line. It's really that simple. And I think a guy like Jalen Mayfield makes a lot of sense. Also, at the linebacker position, Nick Bolton would make sense too. So I think there are some good options for this Kansas City Chiefs team at the latter part of the first round. And really, for me, it's between Bolton and Mayfield. They need some help at offensive tackle. Mayfield could probably slot inside at the interior offensive line position. I don't think that would be outrageous for him. But nonetheless, I think that the big need for the Kansas City Chiefs is defensive help, right? I mean, their offense is always going to be good, but their defense needs to get better because, Patrick Mahomes is going to put up points. That's going to happen, although it didn't happen in the Super Bowl. The defense needs to be really good too, and I think a guy like Nick Bolton would be a true impact player at the linebacker position. I think that's probably the one real weakness of that Chiefs defense. They need a little bit more help at the linebacker position. So I think a guy like Nick Bolton makes a lot of sense. He's got good sideline to sideline speed. He's got a knack for getting to the football. He's solid as a run defender, pretty solid as a pass defender too. So overall, I like Nick Bolton at the end of this first round for the Kansas City Chiefs. And now we're going to go and look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And for me, it's between Kwity Paye and Azeez Ojulari. I think they could definitely go out and get another edge defender in the draft. A guy, to really be another 1-2 punch with whoever's up there for Tampa Bay. I think that, going out and getting an edge defender could really add some extra oomph to this defense. And for me, although I do think Azeez Ojulari might be a little bit better right now, I think he had a little bit more production at the college level. Kwity Paye and the attributes he has and the ability that he's shown at times at Michigan, although he didn't have super amounts of production, he definitely has those physical attributes and those measurables that make teams go wow. And although this Bucs defense, they don't really need anyone. So I think for those reasons they'd go Kwity Paye just for that potential, and I think that would make a lot of sense. And I think even if they got Kwity Paye at pick number 32, that would be an absolute steal for them, just with the measurables and the potential that Kwity Paye has. And with that said, that's going to pretty much end the mock draft, but let's just take a look through here if you guys want to take another look. We got Trevor Lawrence going to the Jags, Justin Fields going to the Jets, Devonta Smith going to the Dolphins, Surtain going to the Falcons, Sewell going to the Bengals, Waddle going to the Eagles, Chase going to the Lions, Wilson going to the Panthers, Parsons to the Broncos, Farley to the Cowboys, Kyle Pitts to the Giants, Trey Lance to the Niners, Slater to the Chargers, Elijah Vera-Tucker to the Vikings, Mac Jones to the Patriots, J.C. Horn to the Cardinals, Gregory Rousseau to the Raiders, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah to the Dolphins, Christian Darrisaw to the Washington Football Team, Samuel Cosme to the Bears, Bateman to the Colts, Phillips to the Titans, Najee Harris to the Jets, Taveen Jenkins to the Steelers, Liam Eichenberg to the Jags, Zaven Collins to the Browns, Terrence Marshall Jr. to the Ravens, Kadarius Toney to the Saints, Christian Barmore to the Packers, Travis Etienne to the Bills, Nick Bolton to the Chiefs, and finally Kwity Paye to the Buccaneers. And with that said, that's pretty much going to end the video for today. Did you agree with my picks? Why or why not? Comment down below who your favorite team picked in today's video. Did you agree with that pick? And with that said, I hope you enjoyed the video. And until next time, see ya.